Jesse of Nothing, Arizona asks, is it possible to effortlessly enchant one's world to such an extent that total strangers marvel and offer you cash? Jesse, yes. Eerie that you asked, because I just did that. And though I wouldn't say I did anything extraordinary, a celebrated Dutch lecturer is now teaching dignitaries what I did. But this isn't about me. It's about how to do it yourself. So if you wish to know my own bizarre example, I'll save it till the end. There's one magical path with no difficulties. It's short and fast. How? I'll explain a mind hack in a moment, but the direct path takes the goal as its path. It's like taking a treasure map with X marks the spot and switching the X for a "you are here" pink dot we see on other maps. The pink dot moves with you, so you're always where X marks the spot. This direct path sees the state of full magical attainment as being not down the way, but already fully present right here, right now. Its method involves fearless expressions of confidence in the nature of the magical universe. It introduces us to seeing all of our emotions, passions, aggressions, and ignorance as the very nature of profound magic. I'll never forget 3 words that my magic teacher, the Burgermeister Eugene, taught me. He said that if there's any effect you wish to engender, just do it. Literally, just make it happen as the confident wizard you are. Not as the wizard you hope to be in the foggy future, but now with the power you already possess and the tools you have at hand. Decide, really decide to do it, and the method will present itself. Here's an ancient mind hack passed down from the Himalayas. Visualize a wizard or other magic practitioner for whom you have a fondness or feel a connection. Visualize yourself in the form of that wizard. Or visualize that wizard as being present in the space in front of you. Or even in tiny form, sitting atop of your head or on your shoulder. Finally, visualize your whole environment as that wizard's magical world. This practice will develop your intuitive wisdom or insight to the point that you are able to experience directly the vivid, magical world that interpenetrates mundane reality. It's like learning how to take photographs in HDR, high dynamic range, which reveals the full spectrum and depth of color and shadow and highlight in any scenario. When you learn how to take HDR photos, you begin seeing the whole world that way, to the point that regular photos will no longer look correct. It's as if there's a thin fog obscuring everything, unless we learn to see through it. HDR photography pierces that fog, and it's a technological process that simultaneously teaches the photographer to naturally perceive the hidden depths in the surroundings. Picturing a wizard in front of you isn't about visualizing something purely imaginary. It's about getting to the basic state of wizardry, seeing yourself as a wizard and the world around you as a magical sigil. It's about lucidly seeing past the smoke and mirrors stage illusions to the ever-present real magic. There's a fine point. Don't imagine you're someone other than who you truly are, or that you are somewhere else than where you are now, as if where you are is somehow less sacred. You are not an ordinary being in a mundane world, so practice seeing yourself as an ideal wizard in a magical universe, prideful of and confident in your primordial magical nature. All words you speak are magic words. All thoughts and emotions are magical intentions. By developing your visualization, you'll see through more and more smoke and mirrors, the illusions, to the unfabricated magic, and your experience of life will be transformed. everything in your environment becomes aspects of the sacred world. Not a castle high atop a mountain that you might never reach, but the goal already here and now. To split your consciousness to elsewheres, to pasts, to futures, that's not the wizardly way. A wizard is awake in the here and now, and in fact, that's one of the magical superpowers. Come back to the present moment again and again with every breath, for the magical life is always within reach. The Burgermeister Eugene echoed the Himalayans when he taught making your own home a mythological or enchanted space. I had actually forgotten that teaching, at least consciously, but apparently it lodged itself in the back of my mind as a guide through a series of crises. My home was nothing special, but it was where I hung my hat and fed my cat. Statistically, where I lived was hit by a mega hurricane once every 100 years. Thanks to the perversity of fate and the faulty pseudoscience of statistics, my home was damaged by 2 one-in-a-century storms, 2 years in a row. Just when the reconstruction was completed after the first hurricane, a second one hit and undid all the work. Almost all of my personal possessions were also destroyed by floodwaters. Not only furniture, but rare autograph volumes, heirloom magic wands, a scrapbook with my mother's handwritten memories. It was a devastating, soul-scarring experience. It seemed that everything had been brutally seized, and a terror loomed. If there can be 2 once-in-a-century storms in a row, can there be 3 or more? And if I ran, might nature yet find me? It seems to have us surrounded. In a crisis like that, I had to switch things up. And of course, that had to begin with a mental process, an adjustment of perspective. The Burgermeister Eugene's teaching, lodged in my subconscious, kicked in. It was time to enchant this place, to salvage it from a disaster zone into something truly remarkable. I researched the history of the property and learned all about the former residents, even those who owned the lot before the house was built, and wrote a little book about them. I had a house plaque made to honor one of the owners, who turned out to be a former mayor of the town. I lovingly decorated the house according to the uncovered history, as well as carved out a dozen little niches into the walls, symbolic windows into hidden depths beneath the surfaces. Instead of righteously being a victim, and believe me, that can be a challenge to overcome, I saw myself a caretaker of an historic property. Mind you, the house dated only back to the 1970s. Not a genuine antique, but with a history all the same. A history I believed in, and history I lived. All this wizardry ended up paying off. Yes, Jesse, I was offered cash from my magical creation. It was an offer I couldn't refuse. Ironically, the buyer wanted not only the house, but all its contents. What I had considered my personal effects turned out to be so naturally woven into the historic space I had created that they were inseparable. And so I lost everything a third time, but finally not as a victim, not as a loser. With the first 2 losses of everything, it felt a challenge of scrambling to recover. All 3 times were springboards to new beginnings. Wherever this new opportunity takes me, you can bet it'll involve creating another enchanted place for my own contentment, but also for the dazzlement of others. So Jesse, just do it. And take the money if it feels right in your soul.